Heaven and earth were created with us. The holy luchos were chiseled out with us. And for more than 3,300 years, since the time of Matan Torah, we were used to write the holy words of Sefarim, Tefillin, and Mezuzos. We're the letters of the Aleph Beis, also known as Ksav Ashuris, for the Jews took us with them from the land of Ashur. Anyone can learn to write us. That's if you have the time to study the hundreds of halachas needed in order to write us properly. You see, we're very fussy about the way we must look, and even slight imperfections can void us completely. Take, for example, little me, the yud. I must have an uketz, a little point right here. Make me round, and not only am I pasul, but I'll ruin the entire Sefer Torah or Parsha in which I'm written. Or take me, the beis. My bottom right-hand corner must be square and sticking out a bit. Make me round, and I'll look like a chuf and become pasul, like this beis here. Our laws, too, change from place to place. When writing a Sefer Torah, you needn't worry about the order in which we're written. Even if you were to write us backward, the Torah would still be kosher. Watch out when writing Tefillin or Mezuzos, for then we must be written in perfect sequence. That's called kesidron, in order. Here, take a look at this Mezuzah. The whole Klaf was written just right. Only a little yud missing in the word kimei. Well, that's just too bad. You can't insert it now, for that would be shaloi kesidron, not written in the proper order, and it would be pasul. So you see, trying to correct any damage is a very tricky business and causes great difficulties. The one who writes us is called a sofer STaM, and STaM stands for Sefrei Torah, Tefillin, and Mezuzos. However, unfortunate as it may be, many people just don't know how to write us properly. In fact, sometimes they really make a mess of us. They butcher us so badly that we're completely beyond repair. Here, take a look at this Mezuzah. Would you believe that somebody actually had this hanging on his doorpost for more than 10 years and kissed it every day? If only he knew that in it was a worthless piece of parchment, and what he was kissing was nothing but a piece of beautifully polished olive wood. The mitzvah of Mezuzah offers protection and security. For my shin daled yud also stands for Shomer Daltzos Yisrael. Hashem watches the doors of a Jew. What better protection can one have than the Melech, Malchei Hamlochim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself, guarding your house? Yet, what protection does it really offer when it's nothing but a worthless fraud or imitation? You ought to see what sometimes can be found in it, and you'll really get a laugh or cry. This Mezuzah contained these parshiyos. And look what was in this one. Someone must have put it up as a Purim prank. It ought to be hanging in Shushan, not on a doorpost. The one who wrote this must have been drunk. Not only couldn't he write a straight line, but he also decided to put in Baruch Shem, which belongs in a siddur, but not in a mezuzah. A great many of the smaller mezuzahs are written on coded parchment, because it's easier to write on, and that's really a disaster. In only a very short time, look what happens. All the letters begin to crack and peel off, and you're left with something that's way beyond repair. This is the world's smallest mezuzah. It's the size of a postage stamp. It probably belongs in the Guinness Book of World Records, but surely not on a doorpost, because it's printed, not handwritten, as it ought to be. These two are identical twins, and no wonder. They're printed as well. And so were thousands of others we found posted on Jewish doorposts around the country. What a vicious fraud. Yet even when written properly, the mezuzah still can't last forever. It's affected by the weather, moisture, and rain. And even a new paint job can be great for the wall, but can be quite detrimental for a mezuzah. Just look what happened to these mezuzahs. What a horrid mess. Yet, mezuzahs are only a small part of the problem. Take this boy, for instance. He's celebrating his bar mitzvah at the Kotel HaMaravi. His deluxe catered affair cost him over $25,000. Yet, he paid only $60 for these tefillin. Would you like to find out why he paid so little? Have a look inside and see for yourself. Why, it's just a worthless imitation. These were indeed a beautiful pair of tefillin, worth probably between $300 and $400. They were brought in to be checked. The parshiyos looked beautiful. But wait, the keen eye of our sofer spotted something. See that final mem? Let's get a closer look. Its bottom right-hand corner is round instead of square. So we showed it to a Rav, who said it was a shilas tinoik. It had to be shown to a child to see if he would recognize it. The child read it as a samach. Unfortunately, the tefillin were pasul. The wearer of these tefillin was heartbroken. He had worn them for over 12 years, he said. Was there anything he could do now, he asked. Yes, just make sure the new ones you get are kosher, we advised him. So, at least now he'd be able to wear a kosher pair for the rest of his life. Can't anything be done to prevent such tragedies, he wanted to know. Sure, I said. Why not come along with me and see what we're doing about it in one of the many free inspection campaigns which we conduct in various neighborhoods around the city. It was 11 Sunday morning when we arrived at the Flatbush Young Israel. There were already more than 200 people there, and well over 500 mezuzos were packed in bags, waiting to be inspected. More than 20 expert sofrim sat around, carefully examining and evaluating each one. It was an impressive sight. Let's see what they find, I suggested. We walked over to watch some of the sofrim at work. They were all completely engrossed in their work, checking carefully every detail, trying their very best to fix any mezuzah that was halachically correctable. We stopped over to the box to see some of the problems they encountered. Here, take a look at this envelope, I said. 8 mezuzos, 1 kosher, and 7 pasul. Pretty bad, isn't it? Let's have a look inside. This one wasn't even kosher to begin with. Read that line next to the bottom. Leman yirbu yemechem v'yimei benoichem. Val with a V, ha'adama. Sad, isn't it? Here's another envelope. Now this one looks much better. 11 kosher and only 1 pasul. Let's take it out and see what went wrong. Say, this is indeed a beautiful mezuzah. It probably sells for over $30. Oh, there I see it. It's the word Mezuzos. It's missing a vav. Not every pasul is an intentional fraud. Mistakes do happen. Let's have a look at this one. The letters all seem to be perfect. Wait a minute. See that little head on the aleph? It ruins everything. And take a look at this one. Notice the final nun in the word bain? Just a little too short. It looks more like a zayin, doesn't it? Now this one would have been perfect if not for that lamed which enters the airspace of that final chaf. Was it common, he wanted to know? All too common, we explained to him. In checking hundreds of pairs of tefillin and mezuzos, we found the percentage of pasulim among the higher-priced ones as much as 20%, which means 2 out of every 10 are pasul. Among the cheaper ones, the percentage of pasulim was as high as 90%, 9 out of 10. Just think, thousands of Jews wearing ordinary leather boxes on their heads and paper-stuffed silver containers on their doors. What a cruel hoax on the buyer. But what hurts most, we explained, is when a person does spend a fortune of money and buys what he considers to be a beautiful pair of tefillin, mahadrin min ha-mahadrin, only to find out years later that they weren't even kosher. But, as we said before, even the best sofer can make an occasional mistake. Here, let's look at some of the errors our Sufrim caught as they were called on to make a routine check in a densely populated Jewish area. Look at this parsha. Do you see anything wrong? Maybe not to the untrained eye, for this mistake is extremely difficult to catch. But now, take a closer look. See that final chaf in the word uvisharecha? Looks great, doesn't it? It's got a perfect square corner. Well, that's pasul is. A final chaf must be round in its corner. Look at that first zayin in the word Mezuzos. Tell me, is it a vav or a zayin? So don't try to be your own Sunday mechanic and check your tefillin and mezuzos yourself. One needs a great deal of experience and literally must know hundreds of dinim to spot minute mistakes. This is not a do-it-yourself project, we explained. The problem is a very serious one, we pointed out. You see, if a mezuzah and tefillin, or sefer Torah, are 99% kosher, and only one little letter is written wrong, then it's really 100% pasul. Do you follow the logic? There is so much to know and so much to learn, but more than that. You can't even know after you've given the parshiyos the most thorough and comprehensive examination. How so, he asked me, quite puzzled. Well, that's because after everything is said and done, you're still always at the mercy of the sofer's integrity. Let's suppose he wrote a beautiful set of parshiyos and put in so much time and effort that they're worth, say, over $300. Then he finds this, one little drop of ink in the resh, turning it into a hay. And now the parshiyos are worthless. He'd be tempted to scratch it out, wouldn't he? And you'd be none the wiser. After all, there's a lot of money at stake. Yet, even this tiny erasure would render the tefillin and mezuzos worthless. This kind of letter is called chak teichos, which is pasul. So you see, even with the best of checking, you must still rely on the integrity of the sofer. You must be sure that he's not only a real Talmid Chacham who knows all the dinim and has Kabbalah for sofres, but above all, he must be a Yarei Shamayim, one who has the fear of Hashem in him, for only he and no one else can be trusted. But how am I supposed to know all of that, he asked. Well, that's part of the work of the Vad Mishmeres STaM. They register sofrim. They check on their qualifications. And they also conduct classes on sofres in a proper and thorough manner. When will all this fraud stop, he asked me. When will dishonest salesmen stop selling cheap imitations? When will they stop cheating the ignorant consumer whose entire wish is only to fulfill the mitzvah properly with his entire heart and soul? Only when the consumer becomes educated, aware and on the lookout, only then will all this fraud stop. And that's why we've brought you this film. We do hope it's taught you something and made you a more knowledgeable and educated consumer.